Oh, good morning. Um, yes, Module 4. Uh, we're going to do this online next week, so I thought I'd do this little video to cover some of the material that we would have covered if we did it in person. Just remember, I'm available according to the office hours that I put on the syllabus agreement that we all signed. Um, Call me, or make an appointment. Come on by, and we can talk in person. These things, we're available. But if we can do it online, I think we can, and we should. So UAS review, just remember there was some questions about dropping things from your UAV. Just remember the PIC is the sole responsible party for preventing undue hazard to property or persons, okay? And we talked that we should remember the rules for consumption of alcohol, 8 hours. You have to wait 8 hours after. And of course there's blood level, alcohol levels as well in the regulations, but 8 hours is a pretty safe bet. If you've been convicted of a controlled substance, that is grounds for suspension for 1 year after the conviction, and having to wait until after the year to recertify as a UAV pilot. Also, VLOS, visual line of sight with the drone at all times, except for what they call momentary scans to look for other airplanes. So you're not looking, you're not staring right at the airplane, at your drone constantly, because there might be an airplane over here that you would want to be aware of and go, oh, you know what I mean? They're just saying momentarily, though. You can't, like 10 minutes, 5 minutes, even maybe 2 minutes would be of being diverted in your attention. And mostly what happens is we get so fascinated with the video that we're staring at the screen and we forget that there is a responsibility to be looking. That's why, having a visual observer with you is very helpful. Especially if you're trying to do a video of something or a photograph of something that you really want to take a picture of, you really need to focus on it. But now there are exemptions that you can obtain to get beyond line of sight, but that we'll get into that later in some of our courses here, because it's a little more complicated. Not something you can just do on the spur of the moment. There's a 90-day, they expect to have the application put in 90 days ahead of time, then they have to approve it. Okay? Accident reporting, we have another video on that. Okay. And just remember there's those 4 components of a UAS, unmanned aircraft system. There's the aircraft, of course, everything necessary for the airplane to fly: props, motors, batteries, control link receivers, GPS receivers, permanently installed lights. That's the aircraft. And there's a control station. We know what that is. That's that little, it's a control station. All right. The interface used by the remote pilot that takes the your inputs, and turns it into electrical signals. That the third one is control link. That's that link between that control station and the aircraft. And then, of course, the fourth component of a unmanned aircraft system is the payload. Anything that might be removed or installed that is not essential to flight. Well, I don't think there's any one of the drones that we have here at the school where the camera can be removed, so it's considered the aircraft. But if there wasn't, there are, of course, drones that carry cargo. There's drones that carry other items, like a camera that might be exchangeable. So those are the 4 things. UAS maintenance. Remember, last week we talked about inspections. We're looking at the batteries to make sure they're not swollen or damaged. Checking the propellers as well. Remember that they're spinning very fast, and when we're taking off and landing, sometimes we're on a pavement somewhere where there's just fine particles of dirt. They'll be kicked up and it'll cause abrasion to the leading edge of those propellers. Even flying in the air, I think I saw in the news that the dust storm from the continent of Africa has crossed the Atlantic, and I think it's mostly in Florida, but some of it might be here. So there's times when there's dust out there, enough dust out there that would be abrasive. Manned aircraft have the same issue, and so they have to have regular inspections of their engines. Also, if there are lights in part of your drone, you want to check to make sure. And of course, the payload. You check to make sure that the attach points for the payload are not worn or damaged. We talked about Part 107.19, which talks about the PIC being the sole person responsible for and the final authority for the safe operation of the aircraft. Yeah, you're going to perhaps it may be your drone and you're responsible for it, but there are also personal character traits which put pressure on you to accomplish a task. But if you're working for somebody else, there's definitely pressures. I mean, he or she is paying you to do a job, so there's pressures to do things that may not be legal. They're not going to get their ticket taken away from them. They're not going to be fined. They're not going to be, asked to account for their actions. You're the pilot. So you have to learn to, at times, say no. Having someone else actually manipulate the controls, but being directly supervised by the PIC. So that's an option as well. You're still the PIC, the pilot command, and you must accept responsibility, even though somebody else might be manipulating the controls. So there is an allowance in the regulation to transfer control between two certified remote pilots, but you need to communicate who's doing what. I am the pilot control until you pass the FAA written exam. But Part 107 does apply to drone flying for the purpose of getting paid. Recreational flying does not require the remote pilot certification rating. But so there's a little bit of a gray area there. I mean, I'm getting paid. Am I getting paid to fly the drone? Debatable. But I think if it came to push shove, it'd be my fault, even if you guys violate. Hang on a second.